Her name is Maura Torkildson. She's an author and she's a spiritual mentor. Now, she's spoken on the stage before and she's got some fresh new material for us, which I'm really excited about. She's a creativity coach and inspirational speaker, and she's passionate about transforming women, their relationships in their inner universe, and connecting with their muse. She empowers others to identify their inner resources, connect to their intuitions, and to use it to help themselves grow. Now, she has written a couple of books. She's got a book that you have on your table today, right? So this book is The Curious Magic of Buckeye Groves. That was published in 2014. And she's actually working on another book that she might be able to tell us a little bit of the insights of that today. And she's received a master's in women's spirituality. So it's something that goes really deep. It's not I would guess, a typical, business curriculum, but I think it probably dives deeper into things that we are all concerned about, right? So she also has done her thesis on exploring women's authentic expression. She's a certified professional co-active coach, and I'd like to present to you Maura Torkildson. Oh, come on, let's hear it for her. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathleen. So excited to be up here today. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for those of you who came in to support me today. That really touches my heart. I really appreciate it. So how many of you would like to trust your intuition more consistently? Would you like to know what the 2 keys are to make that happen? Okay, so number 1 is awareness. If we don't have awareness, then it's hard to listen, right? And number 2, actually the one that I want to dig into a little bit more deeper today, is trust. So Symbol, I love it that you brought that up today, because trust is so key for our intuition. I mean, if you think about it, if your intuition is telling you to get up on stage and you don't want to, doesn't it take a tremendous amount of trust to follow through with that? It's so important on so many levels. So I want to start by telling you just a short story. I'm not going to go into big details, but there was a time in my life when I was actually in the Women's Spirituality program when I didn't think I had any intuition at all. And I did the cardinal sin against myself, which was compare myself to everyone else in the program. Don't we all do that sometimes? And it's not really fair to them or us. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have any intuition? What's the deal here? Well, I didn't know that I actually did have intuition. I just didn't understand how it worked. And I wasn't aware enough. And so over time, I've been on this journey, and I've done a lot of explorations in a lot of different areas. And what I realized that part of building that trust and part of that awareness is understanding myself on a deep level, that inner tree inside me. Which is why I like to call it the inner tree, because the inner tree, it's not just our inner life here in this world, but it's also our connection to the divine. So I brought some of my art with me today because that piece there was inspired. That's the inner tree. And she's looking inward with her arms. And our roots go all the way to the divine. But I didn't know that right away. So I had to go on this journey. And what I realized that there were 3 things that got in the way of me understanding and using my intuition. The first one was I needed to understand my fear. So you see lots of things about fear and not being fearful, but that doesn't ring true to me. We all have fear. And so understanding it can help you move past it. The other one was trusting my emotions. And then managing ego. And the one that I want to talk about today is trusting your emotions. And so what happened about 4 years ago was I lost my job, which was my primary income. And I took a deep dive into fear with that. And at first I tried to avoid it, and I found that didn't really work very well. So I came to study it and understand fear on many levels. And it was actually a really good thing that happened, because 2 years later, in 2014, my father died. And this time I knew that my task was not to avoid, it was to embrace. And so I went through the grieving process very consciously with him. And I embraced my grief, because I'd learned from going through the fear. And so through all of this, I kind of came up with, I guess you could call it, my own little system around emotions. Part of my diving was going out and reading and looking at what other people were talking about, and what emotion systems were out there, what were they talking about as the core emotions. And in this study, I kind of came up with my own plan or my own system for that. So I want to unveil my latest artwork, which is my tree of emotions. So of course, those of you who know me, you know it's got to be a tree, right? So Rebecca's got her flowers, I have the tree, and we all get to root. Okay, so I decided on these 5 emotions as the core emotions, because those were the ones that made the most sense to me. And so if you can't see it, it's grief, shame, joy, fear, and anger. And what immediately came up for me was, wow, 4 out of those 5 emotions are hard. They're challenging. They hurt. And that's kind of a bummer. I was thinking about it this morning, and I realized, wow, we choose to come into this life. Our soul chooses to come into this life. And we come through the birth canal, maybe a little excited about coming into this life, and then we get here and we go, wait, I want to go back, right? But please don't make me die to go there, right? It's hard to be human. And that's why when I woke up this morning, I just thought to myself, the thing that I do with my clients that's the most powerful is I love them in their humanness. I love you in your humanness. It is hard to be human. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to get up every day. And that's because 4 out of 5 of our core emotions are difficult. But what I came to understand when I lost my father was that if I embraced my emotions, it made things a little bit easier. And so I went through this whole process with grief, and what came out of this was this mandala here. So I don't know if you can see, but it has love on one side and grief on the other. It's the yin-yang, and there's a red line down the center, which is fear. Because I realized, oh, you know what? I was afraid of grieving. I told myself before my father died, I don't think I can bear it if someone that I love dies. And I crossed through that line of fear, and I embraced my grief, and I found out that I am incredibly capable of holding my grief, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, because it was actually part of my love for him. So the reality is that we're going to lose everything in this life that we love at one point or another. And we've got a choice around that. We can either avoid the grief, or we can embrace it. And we've been avoiding grief for a long time in this culture, and it's not doing us any good. And so what else came out of this is I realized that actually these 4 emotions, the difficult ones, they're all related to grief, because they all have to do with loss in one way or another. So grief, of course, is what we experience when we experience loss. But anger is either a cover over hurt that we're feeling, or a cover for our fear, and it's a boundary setter. So it's protecting us from loss, or it's also an expression of loss. And of course, fear is all about protecting ourselves from loss, so it's very important. And then you might wonder about shame. Why is shame up there? Well, there's a couple things that I found that were really interesting about shame, because shame is my easiest emotion to go into. I do something wrong and boy, I'm in shame. And so I realized that shame actually has a purpose. So it helps us learn as small children. And when it works well, we learn a lesson. We did something wrong. We have to feel a little remorse or shame, and then we get love after that. But it can become toxic if we don't get that. The other thing that shame does is it's protective. And the way I like to think about this is like the shame posture. So shrinking in on myself, my eyes downcast. That might be just the thing to protect me in aggression. Especially when we're small children, that's the only option that we might have, because shame sometimes de-escalates tension in situation. So it's protective. So of course all of it goes back to the loss of grief. So part of trusting is just trusting your emotions. They have a purpose. And everything that we know in this world, we know through this vehicle that we came into, which is our body. And so trusting your body, including the emotions, is one of the keys to understanding your intuition, because your intuition signals are going to come in through your body in one way or another. And everybody's different. Let me tell you that. Your intuition comes through in a different way. There are some commonalities, but it's all different. And if we can't trust those signals, then we aren't going to be able to listen to our intuition very well. And part of that is also trusting our emotions, because sometimes what our intuition is telling us doesn't bring up joy, it brings up one of those other emotions. And so embracing your emotions and trusting your emotional body. And one of the other things that I learned along the way was a way to process emotions. So that's actually the tip that I'd like to share with you today, because I found it in my own life to be so powerful. So I'm just going to illustrate with a story. When I first got my coaching degree, I was coaching everybody. And I met a new friend, and I actually kind of crossed the boundary a little bit with coaching her right off the bat. And she's like, hey, you know what, I want to set a boundary here. And I respected that. And we went on with our conversation, and she moved on. I didn't. I felt incredible shame. Oh my God, you shouldn't have done that. What were you thinking? And normally, with shame, what I do is I distract myself, or I beat myself over the head, and it takes weeks for me to get over it. This time, I was in San Francisco. I rode the train home in extreme discomfort. And I got home, and I was, getting ready to do my avoidance tactic. And all of a sudden, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just going to get curious about this. And I'm going to see what happens with this shame. And I had learned through another coaching program that you could actually be in the emotion. And so I decided to do just that. And it was amazing, actually, what I experienced there. Everything that I'd been avoiding in the past about shame was right there as a burning band of prickly heat running across my solar plexus. And the more I became aware of it, the more intense it became. And somehow I was able to stay in that observer self and out of the story in my head and just be with the emotion. And instead of carrying it around for 2 or 3 weeks, I was pretty much over it in 24 hours. And I was able to respond appropriately. So I didn't go into I got to send her an email and apologize, which would have been more about fixing how I was feeling than anything about her. But I was able to write her a nice email, which, she thanked me for writing, because I was able to be more authentic with her and explain to her, what happened, and I just was open about what occurred. And so it also changed my choices by being present with my emotions. And so if you try this, try just being with your emotions when they occur and see, how do they show up in your body? And just stay with that. And I think that you'll find that you are perfectly capable of every emotion that you've ever had. And the bonus of this is that it builds resilience. Because so much of life is uncomfortable. And like I said, so much of what we do takes so much courage. And I like to empower women to trust their intuition. So part of that is learning how your intuition comes through. But I think the thing that I love the most is just loving my clients and holding space for them to be in whatever emotion comes up. And because I'm an empath, because I'm clairsentient, I'm often feeling that before they even know it. And I hold space. And that's a big part of what I do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you so much.
Are you a speaker looking to reach more people with your message? You have a global vision that you want to touch the world and make a global difference. If so, I have an amazing opportunity for you. It's called the Speaker Talent Search. Again, that's the speakertalentsearch.com. You'll find all the details, but here are the highlights. With one application process, you get clarity on your message. You get to fine-tune how you want to reach the world. Then you'll have everything ready in one place for the opportunities when they come. Second, we select you as a finalist. You get to come in and audition with a 7-minute audition, open up the door to hundreds of speaking opportunities. I hope you lean in. I hope you say yes. We would love to hear your message. Help you touch the world powerfully. Again, that's the speakertalentsearch.com. We look forward to hearing your powerful message. Hi, I'm Rebecca Gruyter, and I'm the producer of the Empowered Connections TV channel. And I wanted to personally invite you to come on over, enjoy our amazing shows. We are all about empowering women. We're all about transforming lives. We're empowering men to really step out and be all they can be. We are looking for programming and shows to bring things to the next level. So if you are somebody that feels a show birthing within you, you have a calling to bring your show to life and touch the world, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. We are launching new programs and shows every week, every month, because we're going to change the world. I look forward to talking to you.